inequalities. So this is going to be section 3.1. And we will be doing 1 and 2 step inequalities. An inequality is a statement that two expressions are not equal. Now, unlike with an equation, there's only one way we can have an equation, and that is to have an equal sign. There are several different ways we can have inequalities. Inequalities are a statement that two quantities or two expressions are not equal to each other. So there are several ways that can be. One way that we can see is just an equal sign with a slash through it. That means not equal. Okay, that's like the most basic. We're not going to use that one hardly ever. It's a symbol we need to know, but we're not going to use it very much. The ones we're going to see most often are this symbol. What's that one mean? Greater than. This symbol. That one is less than. This symbol right here, what's that one? Greater than or equal to. And this symbol, less than or equal to. Those last four, those are the ones that we're really going to use for these, although it is technically an inequality if you say two quantities are not equal to each other. It is important that you know how to read these symbols out loud. It is also important that you understand what they mean more than just the alligator eats the bigger number. Did you guys learn that? The alligator eating the bigger number whenever you were little, right? And so you would sometimes have a 6 here and a 10 here, and you would you'd have a blank right there, and you'd have to draw the symbol in where the alligator's eating the bigger number. So that still holds true. That is something that we need to know how to do. But I also want you to be able to read this as 6 is less than 10. So you need to know less than and greater than, which side. If you are making the symbols with your hands like this, the less than, use your left hand if that helps you any there, because I have a lot of students that are still getting these mixed up because they haven't solidified that in their brain. So that's something that we want to know here. It will matter on some of the things that we do, especially when we get to some word problems. So we want to make sure we've got that right. So, solving inequalities is almost the same as solving equations. There is one exception. One thing we have to do different whenever we are solving inequalities. Does anybody remember what that is? I think you do inequalities in 8th grade. Riley? We have to flip the symbol when we do what? What? Kind of. Partially correct. Not necessarily fraction. There is something special we have to do when we're doing inequalities that we don't do whenever we are using an equal sign. And he said that we need to flip the sign. And he said that he thinks it has something to do with dividing, and I told him he was partially right. It also has something to do with multiplying, but it's not just every time you multiply or divide. Multiply or divide by a negative number. So we want to write this down. Everyone, I want to see it on your paper. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. Okay, so let's think about why in the world that is the case. So let me give you this first example that we're going to do here. Let's do one like negative 3x is less than 18. Okay, so this is a one-step inequality, right? You basically treat these inequalities basically like an equation. I still draw the line there. That inequality sign acts like our equal sign. This is negative 3 times x. To get rid of the negative 3, I need to divide by 3, negative 3, on both sides. So x, and over here I'll get negative 6. So, because we divided here by a negative number, we have to flip that inequality sign. For these problems, we are going to be graphing our answers on a number line as well. So, we'll have negative 6 right here. That means we'd have negative 7 right here and negative 5 over here. I'd like for you to give me at least one number on either side if you're graphing these by hand. Our assignment's going to be on Delta Math, so you'll be graphing those on the number line it gives you. When I'm graphing these, remind me, you guys did this after the test on Friday. Open circle and shade to the right. Remember that if you have greater than or less than, that's open circle. If you have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, that is a closed or filled in circle. The reason that we have to do that flipping the sign is because whenever we divide or multiply by a negative, it's going to change the sign of our value. So if we had not done that, we would have gotten, I'm going to write this in red, it's incorrect, don't write it. We would have gotten x is less than negative 6. That'd be the answers over here, right? So if we think about plugging that back in, negative 3 times negative 7, maybe that falls in that numbers below negative 6, that'd give us positive 21. That is not less than 18. That would be incorrect, right? So because it flips the sign, it also flips that inequality, because everything on the negative side of the number line is backwards from the positive side. So we have to flip that inequality there. Okay, questions? Okay, let's do a few more. Example 2 is going to be 8 minus x is greater than or equal to negative 15. Okay, so let's see, Lexi, what will we do first on this problem? We're going to subtract that 8. What does that give us whenever we subtract that 8? Negative 22. And don't lose that negative there with the x. So I have that negative. And that negative in front of the x is like having a negative 1. So what do we need to get rid of that negative 1? Divide. So we divide by negative 1. So what do we get for our answer, Lexi? Okay, careful. So on equations, it is perfectly fine if you just tell me the answer is 22. So, but with inequalities, my answer is not just the 22. What is it going to be? This cancels. We got x. What have I got to do with the sign? Flip it less than or equal to 22. It is really important for inequalities. Your answer does have to have the x with it. Okay? So on the test for this, a lot of times your answer choices are multiple choice because it's hard for you to type in x is less than or equal to 22. Or there'll be some stuff that we do on Delta Math where you actually graph it as your answer. You might be looking at the graph as your answer. For all of these, I do want us to graph it, but the answer for any of these is not going to just be 22 or 17 like it's been on the other problems. It's always got to have that x is less than or the x is greater than or equal to or whatever inequality you're dealing with there. So, we need to graph this. 22 would be here, 23, 21. Lexi, what type of circle do I need? Open or closed? Closed. Should I shade to the left or to the right? To the left. Good. Okay. Yes. Yes. Let's change that to 23. Oops. It sounded so right. Okay. Questions here? technically I think this is a 3-step problem, but we're going to do it here. It's 1 and 2 steps anyway. Okay, so for this problem, we need to get that x by itself. Blakeland, what would we do to get that x by itself? Let's see. You got your soccer stuff? Yeah. Okay. Look at dear. Go on to class. He loves his mama so much. Isn't it sweet? Alright. Okay. So, Blakeland, what would we do first on this problem? Good. So we'll multiply by 3 over here to get rid of that 3. We'll have to do that same thing over here on that left-hand side. So we got 30 is less than 5 minus x. Okay. What would be next, Blakeland? Very good. We'll subtract that 5 from both sides. So now we got 25 is less than negative x. And what's our last step? Okay, what are we dividing by? Negative 1. There. So we get negative 25 is less than x. Does that look good? Oh, does not. What did I do wrong? I did not flip that inequality sign. So we will flip that inequality sign right there. It's also really important that you do not switch the sides. You have to work straight down on both sides. Because if I want to write it like, with an equal sign, it doesn't matter. Like a lot of times, if that was an equal sign, I would write my answer x equals 25, negative 25 there at the end, because I just like the x to be on that left-hand side. You cannot do that with inequalities. Because if I rewrite this, and I like to, because I don't like for the x to be on that right-hand side, if I write this with the x over here and the negative 25 over here, what do I have to do? I've got to flip the sign back and make it less than. Because if the alligator is eating the negative 25 right here, the alligator has to eat the negative 25 when you switch the sides. So if you switch your x and your negative 25, you also have to flip that sign back. I like to do this because most of your questions are going to be multiple choice on these, and this is much more likely to be an answer choice than negative 25 is greater than x. Also, when you graph these, so we've got negative 25, that would be a negative 26 here, a negative 24 here. I would need an open circle. Do I shade to the left or to the right? I'd shade to the left. If you don't flip this back around where the x is on the left-hand side, I don't know how many of you, some of you may just think about it, but I usually think about this less than sign pointing in that direction. That tells me I need to shade in that direction. That is wonderful and great to do, but only works if your x is on the left-hand side. Okay? So, like if I were to follow the arrow here, this arrow points in the opposite direction, right? So you have to have the x on that left-hand side if you're going to think of it that way. Okay, questions? All right, let's do one more, and then you guys are going to do some practice on your own. So, example 4. Alright, so we have 3x plus 10 is greater than or equal to negative 26. So, for this one, Giancarlo, what would I do first? Good. So 3x would be greater than or equal to negative 36. Then what would I do? Okay, we'll divide by that 3. So x is greater than or equal to negative 12. Did I do that right? Do I have to flip it? This is always a debate. Okay. Did I divide by a negative number? I did not. I divided by 3, which is positive. So I do not have to flip the sign here. But what I see is a lot of students do flip it because that top number is negative. It's only if you're dividing by a negative number. It's only if you're dividing by a number there on the bottom that is negative. So you would just leave this one like it is. To graph it, you've got negative 12, negative 13 would be down here, negative 11 is up here. Close circle, we'll shade to the right-hand side. Okay, so your answer can either be that inequality, or it could be the graph. Delta Math is going to ask you for both today. So let's, this is all we'll do for notes, but I'm going to do one Delta Math for us together, just so you see how you'll put your answer in. So we'll be doing this 1- and 2-step inequalities assignment today. And I think that is it. Okay. All right, so you will have an equation like we see here. I've got negative 6x minus 5 is less than or equal to negative 23. I would add 5 to both sides here. So I'd get negative 6x is less than or equal to negative 18. I would divide both sides by negative 6. When I do that, what do I have to do to my sign? Flip it, and I would get a positive 3 there. So to type this in, you would do x is greater than or equal to 3. That's your inequality notation. Then you also have to graph. So at 3, that'd be right here between 2 and 4. Oh, if you want to get rid of something you've done, you're going to click, nothing is going to show up, but then you're going to drag it. Make sure you drag it all the way to the end until the arrow turns green. If you stop at 12, it thinks you're telling it only from 3 to 12, not everything greater than 12. So you got to drag it all the way to the end until the arrow turns green. And then I need an or equal to sign, so I'm going to just leave it like it is because it looks good like it is. But if you need to change the open circle to a closed circle, you just click on the circle there. And so you'll graph it like so. And that will be your answer. Go to your next problem and it will give you another. Okay. You're welcome to use whiteboards if you would rather on this, or you can use your own paper. Either one is fine. And if you work hard, I think you might have them done before we go. It's 15 questions.